Hello and welcome to Group Chat. I am Justin Verrier, and joining me, Big Waz is here. But we have yeeted Rob Mahoney across the floor like Tyler Hero, replaced him with Kirk Goldsberry. Back again. What's up, Kirk?
Well, I threw him to the ground in a fit of rage, and I'm happy to replace Rob Mahoney here today. Thanks for having me, Justin.
Waz, how are you doing? After a lovely holiday week.
I'm doing good, man. I'm taking a break from crushing Rolling Rocks, and I'm just here to provide content for the people. That's all.
Are Rolling Rocks like the official drink of Los Angeles now? Have I missed out on the latest trend?
No, it's just another central Pennsylvania staple. That's all.
That's right. Yeah, we were talking before the pod. So Kirk went to Penn State. You went to a different version of it. I never knew this about you.
Yeah, it's like the closest satellite school over there. That's kind of what they sell people on. It's like you do your 2-year prison stint in Altoona, Pennsylvania, and then you go to State College. I did the 2 years and then just went back home and went to Brooklyn College. But yeah, a lot of fun nights in Toontown and a lot of time spent honestly in State College too. A lot of tailgating, a lot of, Canyon pizza with the big vat of self-serve ranch dressing that you get for your dollar pizza. Just a lot of core memories, man. Shouts to Mangione for reminding me of my time in Toontown.
Yeah. Shouts to Luigi. He's showing us a lot about all of us.
That's right.
But we're here to celebrate the beloved Nittany Lions who are in the college football playoff. But specifically, we're here to also talk about and celebrate LeBron James, who turns 40 years young today on Monday. The Lakers got him a little bit of an early birthday present by getting him something we know that he loves and holds close to his heart, which is a 3-and-D wing, finally, after a couple years of not necessarily having one of those. Kirk, what do you think about this trade overall? Just to go for the details just quickly, Dorian Finney-Smith, Shake Milton go from the Nets to the Lakers. The Lakers get the Nets to the Lakers. The Nets get D'Angelo Russell, Maxwell Lewis. 3 seconds, 2 of them unprotected. Did you like this deal, Kirk, for the Lakers?
Yeah, of course. I mean, anybody doesn't. I'd love to have that conversation. I think Rob Pelinka did pretty well. I mean, 3 second-round picks for a player who's going to slide right in and make that team look better on offense, where they've really struggled. But I love how you phrased it, Justin. Like, I wish they would have gotten this kind of player for him for his 37th, 38th, and 39th birthday. It's been a while since the king of the three-point assist, the league's all-time leader in three-point assists is LeBron James. He's assisted on more threes than Stephen has made. Pat Riley knew to surround him with shooting. The Cavaliers knew to surround him to shooting. The only time the Lakers really did that, they won the freaking championship. It feels like it's a long time coming, but I love the move here in 2024 for the 40-year-old LeBron James to get somebody like Dorian Finney-Smith on the edge of that offensive scoring area for him. I mean, it's perfect.
Man, I don't know. I have to disagree. Three cracks at a potential Bronny James types player. You let that go to bring Dorian Finney-Smith in? I can't believe that. No, I'm kidding. Obviously, I just think D'Lo's skills were just redundant. They don't need his on-ball stuff. Like, the shooting kind of comes and goes. And obviously, he's horrible at defense, which Finney-Smith is going to be. If nothing, he's going to be competent on that end and be at least decent on catch and shoot. So, just like as a fit, Finney-Smith makes way more sense in terms of Laker deficiencies than what D'Lo does. I guess D'Lo can go replace Dennis Schroeder on the Nets. Like, I guess that makes sense for them. And, getting 3 second round picks for Finney-Smith isn't the worst thing ever. And I think the Lakers made a nice move, even if it's on kind of the margins,
So the Lakers traded for Russell Westbrook on July 29th, 2021. It has taken them 3 years and 5 months in order to revert the roster practically back to the point it was before they made that. And now, as you guys kind of laid out there, the Lakers looked at their best when they just surrounded LeBron and AD with these type of guys. I really like the Finney-Smith fit for all the reasons you guys mentioned. And I also like that he's kind of a bigger version than they have in what they found in Max Christie. Like, Finney-Smith is going to be able to guard bigger. And there were some rumors going into the season that they might try to acquire another center, either to to pair with AD in the starting lineup or even bring him off the bench. I'm glad that they didn't do that. This feels like the best version of that. And so you have Finney-Smith who can guard the bigger guys. You have Max Christie, still young, figuring it out, but he acquitted himself as a 3-and-D wing who can guard guards and 1s and 2s and perhaps some 3s there. And so there's just like a balance to the roster that they haven't had since that bubble title. I think the big question though, Kirk, is that team worked because it practically spotlighted AD and LeBron as top 5 players. AD has been incredible this year. JJ has leaned into him, and that has worked really well for them. But I think to your point, to the piece that you wrote on The Ringer a couple days ago, like, can LeBron still be a guy who could lift these type of guys around him? Is there still a title run left in LeBron with these type of guys around him?
No, I don't think so, to be blunt. I think it's a good move. I think it helps the Lakers go deeper. But this is a young man's game, dude. I'm on the wrong side of 40 myself. I wouldn't want to be chasing 25-year-olds around at LA Fitness. And like, that's what this guy's trying to do. And you can see it. He's not the same guy. I'm not throwing shade. He's the best 40-year-old player I've ever seen play basketball in my life. But he can't be expected to be the guy who's going to go win a finals MVP. That's too much to ask night in, night out. But I think this makes them much better, Justin. And I think the West is a little uneven now with Luka's injury. I think OKC still deserves to be a clear favorite. Then you have Memphis, Dallas, and then a slew of teams that have some flaws, like Denver, Houston. I think LA is in that group. And I'll never bet against LeBron James, but I just don't think – I'd be curious to hear what Woz says. I don't think this is a championship contender as presently constructed. But I'm eager to hear what you think. What do you think, Woz?
I mean, I don't think anybody watched the Lakers this year and said to themselves, they were Dorian Finney-Smith away from championship contention. Like, you can't credibly make that statement. I think it's nice that they're going in the direction of being a better team, a more well-fitted, well-rounded team. But no, I don't think they're in the class of, OKC, certainly not Dallas, or even Memphis for that matter, even though they whooped up on Memphis the other night. I just think, they still got too many holes on offense. Too much of the shot creation is dependent on Austin Reeves, who I like, is a really good player, is a nice player. If he didn't play for the Lakers, man, nobody would know who Austin Reeves was for real. But he's got such an outsized role on the team. And I just don't think he's good enough for that. As great as AD has been, as great as LeBron has still played, even at a diminished state, I just don't think they have the juice on offense to do it. And on defense, they've gotten better in recent weeks. Like the past 2 weeks, they've looked competent. They've played on a string. They look like they're playing together, but I don't think they have a lot of defensive talent, if we're being real. And so, no, I don't think this makes them a contender in the West, but I like that they're better. That'll be more fun to watch.
So they've won 6 of their last 8 coming into Monday. 3 of those were against the Sacramento Kings. Unfortunately, they took just all the benefit of beating up on the Kings as they've started to figure things out. We'll get to Mike Brown and the firing a little bit later. I will say they have found something. They feel like there's more of a flow on offense. I do like what they've done with Rui Hachimura, basically punting on center and working him in as a small ball center. I think, like, bring Koloko in every once in a while. And so it just seems like there's much more of a logic to everything. And then Finney-Smith kind of fits that whole idea. I think the West is starting to remind me of what it was 2 years ago when the Lakers made the West Finals, whereas like there was one clear definitive favorite that separated itself from the pack in the Nuggets, and then there was everybody else kind of clawing to get into that range. I think the good thing for the Lakers is I think that they probably have a track to get back to that point again. And OKC doesn't have a Jokic type who could just slam the door shut as soon as you get there. I mean, I believe in the Thunder. I think they're going to make the finals. I think they're clearly the team in the West that everyone's trying to chase. But if you have any doubts about them at this point, you're like, maybe in a series against LeBron, is like Shea going to have enough guys in order to support him? I'm not sure. And so I don't know. I'm starting to convince myself of it. I know it sounds crazy because like probably 2 weeks ago, Kirk, we were talking about the Lakers just being a complete catastrophe. Like maybe they might not make the play-in and whatnot. But right. I don't know. Do you think that they could end up in like the West Finals even?
Potentially, I would put that at their ceiling. I mean, permission to get nerdy here for a second. Like
Of
net
course.
rating is a better predictor of playoff success than winning percentages. So on the one hand, the Lakers are 18-13. That's nice. They just got better with Dorian. But on the other hand, when LeBron's on the court, their net rating is -6. And the people who look at the game the way I do, it's just a giant red flag, dude. Like this guy is playing most of the game and you're losing when he's out there. And I take that pretty seriously. Does that mean they're not going to make the playoffs? No, I just don't believe they're built to last through the gauntlet of what's going to be the 2025 Western Conference playoffs. I think they're in good shape. They're better than I thought they would be at this point in the season. Hand up on that. LeBron's playing well for his age. But remember, when they won it all, dude, they had Dwight and JaVale next to Anthony. They had Danny Green, KCP, Kuzma. They had dudes. They had dudes that could rebound, that could play physical defense, and they were a top half offensive team and a very, very good defensive team. I'm not saying either of those things about this team. This team is struggling to score and is not the defensive juggernaut that championship team was, and is certainly not as physical as that Dwight Howard JaVale front court with Anthony made them. So I just don't see that for them. I could see them, like you're saying, Justin, sneaking in to the conference finals. I'd put that at their ceiling.
Yeah, I'm with Kurt. I mean, I think getting to the second round would be an amazing feat for this team. And yeah, the thing about that 2020 team, people, laugh about the bubble championship or whatever, but throughout that season and in the bubble, they had an elite defense. They beat the hell out of people on defense. They like Caruso and KCP
That's right.
and Kuzma on the perimeter. And then LeBron, when he would dial it up, he would find it within himself to dial it up on defense, obviously backed by AD and Dwight. Like that was something. They had a special defensive unit. There's nothing special about either of the units on this team. That's just not the case. And yeah, one of their best players is a guy that's about to turn 40, and that has its limitations. But I just don't think they have the roster depth that previous team had. And they pretty much haven't since they let all their wing guys go in order to bring Russell Westbrook in order to be cheap as hell and not keep Caruso.
Yeah, even to bring Schroeder in the original time, getting rid of Danny Green almost as like flotsam, as salary matching fodder, and then he just went on to play 2 more years with Philly. It's like, whoops, sorry about that. Yeah, I would put the Lakers at doubtful to make the West Finals, if only because the Grizzlies have looked very good when Ja Morant is there. But you could kind of find all these caveats to all the teams that they're probably competing against. Ja has been in and out of the lineup, including this weekend. He wasn't available for a ding and dent. These things just keep coming up. Dallas, I think, when right, looks incredible. But Luka's now out for what? Probably a month, and you don't know when he's going to be back. They just can't find the right combination of guys at the right time. The Rockets are young. The Clippers working Kawhi back in. Denver has looked atrocious defensively of late, and Jokic in particular. And so, I don't know, the door is open, but we'll see what happens. But I think this ultimately just becomes a LeBron conversation. I wonder, Kirk, the context makes sense around him. I think Reeves is playing well. Offensively, he seems to be finding like a version that he had probably when he first popped a couple of years ago. I mean, do you think like they can even put a good defense around LeBron considering his limitations on that end?
I think a good defense is there. I don't think a great one is there. I think Dorian is not what people think he was like in Dallas 5 years ago, but he's good. And I think I said this earlier, like he's good. He can guard a 3 or a 4 pretty well. You try to put him in that small ball 5. I don't think he's going to be that guy for you. But he's a good defender, and certainly exporting D'Angelo Russell will have positive defensive impact as well. So I think their defense is Western Finals ready. I think it can get to that level. It's the other end, dude. Like there was a 10-game stretch, I think, when I put up my efficiency landscape last week, where only the Wizards had a worse offense than the Los Angeles Lakers. Like, I'm sorry.
That's
the
not
Wizards,
a good thing.
one of the best G League teams we have. But I think when you can say that, it's like, how are you going to get through the playoffs with an offense that can't score? And to Waz's point earlier, when you're 29th in offense over a stretch like that, you're not a Dorian Finney-Smith away from going up and beating Nikola Jokic in a playoff series or beating the Dallas Mavericks with Kyrie and Luka in a playoff series to get to the Western Final. So I think the problem, Justin, is on the offense. And like a lot of things, there's just an occasionality with LeBron James at 40 that wasn't there 5-10 years ago when you could bank on this guy. You have LeBron James, your top 5 offense, period. We can't say that anymore, especially when they haven't done a great job surrounding him with that 3-point talent. So I think the defense is fine, but I think ultimately their ceiling is going to be on the offensive end.
What do you think, Woz? LeBron at 40. Are you in your feelings today as we celebrate probably the best player of our era?
It's funny because I was never really a Kobe person growing up. I was kind of like annoyed with the Mike comparisons because I was like a Michael Jordan sort of sycophant. And then I became a big fan of LeBron. But obviously followed his career really closely and all of that stuff. But like, I remember when Kobe retired, a deep sadness just like engulfed me. I was like surprised by like how sad I was that Kobe was going. It was like weird that Kobe would not be part of what I was doing in terms of my NBA consumption. And I would imagine when that day comes for LeBron, it's going to be like, even worse than that. Because for me, LeBron is kind of the last vestiges of my youth. I was a young person when I became aware of LeBron James. I might have been a freshman in high school. I myself was a high school basketball player when ESPN started putting him on the TV. And I just couldn't believe that somebody in high school could be that good. Because when you show up to a game and the team has a 6'8" kid, the guy can barely chew and walk and chew gum at the same time, right? Much less have a handle, have hops, have court vision, hit threes. It was just like mind blowing. And to watch him at every single step, just, accolade, and achievement has just been crazy. And to think that the guy's now 40, and basically this is it. This is the swan song. It's kind of nuts. I'm getting a little choked up just thinking about it now, Verrier.
It reminds me of what people say about funerals. It's like people are sad for the person you lost, but also that like your own mortality is starting to come into focus. 100%. You're just realizing that we are all on this collar wash in addition to
not a kid
LeBron.
anymore. No, sir.
Yeah,
dude,
I don't know.
He was like this. That's a great point. Go ahead, Justin.
No, I mean, I think the crazy thing, Kirk, is like you kind of hit it. It's the consistency because on nights like against Steph on Christmas, you see him turn it on. Yeah. And it still looks or is a facsimile of like what we're used to. And so I still convince myself that like he could still do it. And I do wonder in a short series where he has time to rest and game plan, he could still be a more methodical version of what he once was. But I don't know. What do you think?
Well, I was at the Spurs at the end of Tim, and I was looking back at Tim's stats. He was 39 and he was still good. We thought we could win it all that year, and the Thunder had a different idea. And shout out to that team; they're really good. But Tim was playing 65 games, famously, one of the main innovators of load management, along with Greg Popovich. But it helped. And when it was time for the playoffs, he's playing 25 minutes a night in the regular season. Third, even played 60 games, something like that. And if I could change one thing about what our friend JJ is doing and what LeBron is doing, because I know he has some input too, is like, bro. We don't need this 82 times this year. We need this April, May, and June if we're lucky. Because you're right, the Christmas night is like, and he has like a 35-point triple-double, I think, against Atlanta. A chase down block on Dyson Daniels this year that looks like he's still 30 years old. I just want them to take a page out of the Greg Popovich manual of superstar career and elongate how much LeBron we get, particularly this season. He's playing more minutes than two of the Knicks starters who start for Tibbs. Like, what are we doing? Like, be careful. That's the king. That's the old king right there. We have to be careful with this dude, JJ. That's what I would say to them if I could change one thing, because I really do think there is something left in the tank, but we have to protect. We have to protect it a little bit.
Yeah, it was, you're right, Justin. Like on Christmas Day, watching LeBron and, he turns it up because he's playing against Steph and Draymond, who he has a relationship with and obviously wants to beat them. And it's like the primetime game. And it's like, wow, like, okay, if this guy could do this, over the course of a series, like, man, the Lakers could be a really dangerous team. AD goes out, and it's just like, whatever. We got LeBron. We'll figure it out. It just feels like this stuff is way harder to summon, even like, within a playoff series where there's 2 and sometimes 3 days apart from games, that like it's tough for him to get there, 7 times in a series, and some people might be like, well, maybe he needs to do it 4. It's like, no, he could play great in the game and still lose. Right. And so that's why I'm just like, I don't know, as much as like if LeBron played on a team where if we could like do a cross sports reference where like Brady goes to the Bucks and, the Bucks have the best defense in the league. They have a really good offensive line. It's just like, all right, Brady just has to be good in moments and like all of this surrounding talent can kind of carry the day. That's not what's happening on the Lakers. This guy has to be an MVP kind of player every day in order for this team to succeed. And so, that's why it's tough for me to think that the Lakers are going to be, too competitive come postseason time.
Yeah, I don't think it's a coincidence that the Lakers have looked their best when Austin Reeves has really played his best in probably 2 years, because they need that supplementary creator Kyrie type in order to take the reins whenever is necessary. Like, yeah, like you could do it, but actually what you need to do is you need to be on an all-star level whenever LeBron needs you to be. It's more about dialing it up more than it is being consistent when playing around LeBron. And I do wonder if there is still a move for the Lakers, just because they maintained all of their first round picks. And I think this probably gets at the central tension in LeBron's career, practically since he left Miami, where it's like, how much does the organization value the post LeBron period versus the now? Whereas you could say, like, if there was a player to go out and get, like, it would make sense to maybe replace Reeves or something like that and just have that offensive pop and just make the best version of this team. Let's go for it. But you could also argue, like, well, there might be a post LeBron period. It might be coming up as soon as next season. Well, let's try to find someone and prioritize AD in the same way that, frankly, the Heat have with Bam Adebayo and Jimmy Butler. I'm curious whether or not teams are as interested in the contracts that the Lakers have. Kirk, as someone who worked in a team, you might have more insight into this, like a Rui Hachimura, the extra year on that. The Jared Vanderbilt contract looks pretty bad. Do you think like there's any like room for them to do anything more? And would you, as an organization, considering where LeBron is at his career, go out and try to swing something that helps LeBron more than it helps you down the road, maybe 3 years from now?
I guarantee you they're going to try. I mean, that's the DNA of the Buss family and the Lakers brand, especially with this clutch LeBron era in place in Los Angeles. They're going to try. I think the CBA is going to make all these kinds of transactions just harder for the Lakers. But my thesis is they want to make a move. It's who this team is. They live and die by trading players. They certainly, I think, would prefer to have another big next to Anthony Davis that could give them an opportunity to play bigger sometimes. So I think they will. Whether or not they will pull one off, I think, is a bigger question.
What do you think, Wos? Do you think, like, if you were Rob Pelinka, you're wearing a gorgeous, like, zip-up team polo, are you looking ahead of LeBron, or are you saying, actually, what we need to do is LeBron is playing well enough now, AD's playing well enough now, let's try to accelerate this team, let's make the best version of this team?
Yeah, it's hard because the kind of players that I guess were on the market, the Trae Youngs, who I guess he's not getting traded anymore, is he? I don't know.
It's pretty good in Atlanta.
It feels like Atlanta likes what's happening over there. Zach LaVine, whose name has come up a trillion times, Brandon Ingram, these same, like, Zion Williamson. I mean, like, what kind of deal do they even make, right, in terms of who's out there that would be this perfect figure? I don't think there's any centers, certainly not, or bigs that are out there that could turn this thing around. I almost wonder if they could take a chance on a guy who hasn't been proven and see if they could figure something out. Like, see if they could find their own, Hartenstein on the Knicks last year, where nobody thought this guy was going to play, much less be like a freaking cog in the postseason machine that he became. I wonder if they could get creative and try to find that kind of player, because I don't think there's a star big. And I don't know why you would deploy that much resources for a big next to AD for somebody who's supposed to be just more complementary to what AD's doing. And now, I don't know I guess upgrading Austin Reeves might be the idea, making him the centerpiece of something. But, again, with the cap situation being what it is, I don't know how they do this.
Yeah, I was just going to say, I think they won with those two bigs, like putting JaVale and Dwight next to Anthony gives them sort of a different look, sort of akin to OKC when they go big. But I would look at Valanciunas. I would look at Vucevic in Chicago and potentially who was the other one I was thinking? I'll come back to it. But just another, Pirtle in Toronto, I think. Somebody like that who could come in and just sturdy up the defense they should be considering. I'm not advocating them doing that, but getting that second big that gives them a completely different look in their front court and lets Anthony Davis maybe focus a little bit more on offense and less on rebounding during long stretches of the season. I think that could help them.
Yeah, I like it because it would give him different looks. And as we see in the playoffs, a lot of the time it comes down to malleability. And you look at some of the younger teams, they've been able to build the depth in order to play against anybody. Like it feels like the Grizzlies, for instance, have like 7 centers just ready to pop in whenever they need it. I almost wonder if the Grizzlies, I doubt that they would help the Lakers, and I don't know if the Lakers have what they need. If anything, the Grizzlies probably want veteran players. But Brandon Clark, is he expendable just because you have Jay Huff? Is there something in a 3-way trade where you get Clark and they trade for maybe a wing? They seem to be like they might be in the Cam Johnson sort of mix. So I agree. The big is valuable. I think unfortunately AD just like, the shooting just never came around for him. It seemed like this season, like he seemed like he was showing progress in a way that he hadn't in recent years. And it seems like this is now a trend where it's like the first 2 months he puts up more, he shows signs of progress and ultimately reverts back to the version he is, which is still an all-star Hall of Fame level big. We need to appreciate AD for what he is, but like he is what he is at this point. He's a center. And so getting Finney-Smith, for instance, I think matters and makes a lot of sense in that regard. What do you guys think about this trade from the Nets' point of view? Because I thought it was interesting that they basically traded Schroeder and Finney-Smith for seconds. So 6 seconds in total. So no first. So I almost wonder if it sets a market in a pretty bad way for teams looking for first round picks. Shouts to my Portland Trailblazers who have been dying for a first round pick for Jeremy Grant, unfortunately. They're also being more hardcore and metal about tanking in a way that I think a lot of teams are a little bit skittish of. They were basically like, Schroeder is playing so well. Let's get him the fuck out of here and let us sink like a freaking stone in the standings. Kirk, do you like this trade for the Nets side of things?
Pretty much. I would give it a B to steal from Kevin Pelton's trade grades. But I would say a B. I'm not mad at it. I thought they could have gotten more, maybe. But I think the more interesting story is what you were alluding to. They're not done, dude. They told me, somebody on that team told me if they started winning, they were going to trade everybody. And unfortunately, these guys, they started winning, and they got some attractive pieces left. So this is just like the second inning for them, dude. I think Cam Johnson's got to get his suitcases ready to go. I mean, I think Nick Claxton, whoever else. And I kid a little bit, but I think this is the biggest seller in the next few weeks in the NBA marketplace, Justin. I think this one was okay, not great. But if they end up doing a deal for Cam Johnson, they better get more than this. And I think they do have motivations to go. Remember when we fixed tanking, by the way, Justin? Wasn't that great when we fixed tanking? But yeah, they had an all-time tanking performance this weekend or last night, I should say. But yeah, I don't know. I'd be curious what you guys think on this trade, but also if you think there's more to come out of the Brooklyn sort of trade machine.
Yeah, they had to start doing stuff. The team, like as it was constructed coming into the season, it'd been a long enough time that it's like, all right, this team is like not bad enough to tank. Like they just weren't. And so getting rid of Schroeder, who was at the, sort of at the forefront of their unexpected competence, made all the sense. Did three second rounders, with the Lakers, they're rarely like some kind of lottery team where you're going to get a pick in the like 35 range or something like that. But, it's nice to have those 3 cracks sort of lottery tickets out of it. And it makes sense for a team who just is trying to start from scratch. They're starting completely over. And so, them maximizing the ability to bring younger guys in there, I'm not mad at it. And in terms of other guys I'd like to see go, like Claxton, it's weird. Like they go out and they pay the guy, but then now he's like also trade fodder again, which is just weird how the current NBA works. Like, is this and in one breath, it's like, all right, like we believe in your talent and we think you can be part of what we're doing in the future. And on the other breath, it's like, maybe we can get some picks for this guy. And so him and Cam Johnson, honestly, are the 2 guys left that I think most teams would be looking for.
Yeah, and I think the Grizzlies in particular would be interested in Cam Johnson. They were reportedly the other team in the mix here. And I think it's interesting, like the juxtaposing offers that were out on the table, according to Mark Stein and some other people. So apparently the Grizzlies offered a protected first rounder up to top 17 protections, Luke Kennard, who is an expiring, but also John Conchar, who has 2 years and $12 million left on the deal. And so on the one hand, this seems like a pretty precedent-setting trade for the rest of the market, probably going through the deadline. And that's why I think it's interesting from just more of a transactional nerd POV. On the one hand, it's probably a bad thing that Dorian Finney-Smith, a starting caliber 3-and-D wing, who we just said is so advantageous to a guy like LeBron. Your superstar needs a 3-and-D guy. You're getting seconds for him. And so that's bad for any guy holding one of those types of guys. On the other hand, they basically established that any contract like beyond this season, anything beyond an expiring is bad in a way that they can now leverage in future trades with Cam Johnson, for instance. And so if they go to the Grizzlies right now and they're like, we've just showed you that Conchar, we don't want that. We want clean books. We want to just like work with Tyrese Martin, I guess, for the rest of the season and just see what's going on there. And so maybe they can extract more out of a Johnson deal as a result. I don't love getting the seconds, but I think them being so precise and upfront about what their motivations are for this season is playing an advantage in the same way that it is with like the Suns. Like the Suns are like, we're going to be a second apron team and we're going to be so over the second apron. We're not even going to be able to see the second apron. We're in like a 5th apron at this point. And as a result, they were able to swing a Bradley Beal trade because nobody else wanted to take that on. They're like, take all these fucking pick swaps. I think the Nets are the counter example to that, where it's like, oh, we're going to be so bad and we don't care how bad we are. And you guys actually have to tank as bad as us just to get into that top 3 range.
I got a question for both of you guys. Is Cam Thomas nailed to the floor? And if he's not, like, what kind of team wants to make a move for Cam Thomas?
I think Cam Thomas will help the Brooklyn Nets achieve their current goals. I think he's the perfect player to help them achieve what they want to achieve this season. That's my take. He's right at home in Brooklyn.
He's gonna take 30, 40 shots a game for this team now. Just nuts. Because I'm like, if the team is like, look, we really want to bring some genuine shot creation. Like that is one thing he can do. He can get his shot off pretty much against any defense. And obviously on the right night, he could drop 40 on somebody's head. He's just not that consistent. And, the assist numbers, I know at the beginning of the season, people were oohing and eyeing because he was getting like 3 assists a game. But like, I wonder if a real team would ever say to themselves, Cam Thomas might be somebody we should sniff around.
Yeah, I think a team like, for instance, Houston, a team that just needs like consistent scoring punch when they're looking around and they're like, oh, there's like 4 young guys we want to play through and develop, but actually what we need is like 10 points in this 4th quarter. I could see him making a lot of sense for those type of teams, like a younger team that just needs stability offensively. I imagine like he came back at the right time, so I imagine they're probably surveying offers at this point. So we'll see about that. Kirk, what do you think about the idea though of like precedent setting trades as someone who's worked with the team? Like, do you think like the market like is now looking at this and is saying like, oh, whenever we're trading for a Cam Johnson or Thomas or any other player on another team, like we're using this as an example for what we're going to give you in terms of value for your guy?
Yeah, that's true. I'll never forget the best example of that. It's a free agency signing, but when Mozgov, I think, got the first deal in the 16 free agency period, we were all at 1201 and we saw the numbers come across. I'm like, fuck, we don't have a chance against anybody because the market, it is a little bit of a constrained market situation, and these transactions are not happening in a vacuum. And again, I think the marketplace is just sort of harder to deal with the aprons that you're alluding to in the rules. So there's just lack of migration happening. It's just fewer transactions, and I think that's gonna and there's just fewer bidders for a player like Cam Johnson this time around. So I think it is a good way to look at it, Justin. And like I said, I think they could have done a little bit better, but maybe that's just me living in the previous CBA environment. Because this might be the new reality for a good 3-and-D wing who could literally start for almost any other team in the league. 3 seconds.
Waz, what do you think about Cam Johnson now as like the next guy? Do you think the Grizzlies, I guess this is more of a Grizzlies question, but like they seem like they have a lot of picks and they have the motivation to maybe turn like 2 guys at the end of their bench into 1 guy who's a solid rotation player. Would you like them like maybe overpaying for a Cam Johnson just to make a swing at this season?
I think so. Just because they have so much depth, like it's not going to crush their depth to get rid of a few guys. To bring in a Cam Johnson who, like, you know, back in the days we used to call him a 3-and-D. We realized the D part isn't really, you know, too big of a part of the equation. Right. If we're being honest, but I think on the Grizzlies, man, if being surrounded by that much youth and athleticism, his defensive sort of deficiencies won't be as pronounced on the team. And I think his shooting legitimately around what Ja is doing would be just an incredible addition, because people do have to guard this guy out to 25, 26 feet, man. He is that lethal in terms of his range. And he's gotten better over the years, you know, since the Suns days of actually putting the ball on the floor, moving it, even getting all the way to the basket every now and again. And so, no, I think that would be a beautiful move. But I'm the guy that's always like, screw the future and get the talent in right now, especially when you have, you know, generational type players like John Moran on your team. Like, to me, the time is always now. And so, yeah, I'm a bit biased in that sense. I think they should, you know, put some assets out there and bring in a Cam Thomas or somebody else who adds that similar dynamic, who is somebody who just absolutely has to be guarded from outside and can be like respectable on defense.
What do you think, Kirk? Cam Johnson, Memphis Grizzly?
I think it's going to be a more competitive landscape. I think Golden State wouldn't mind getting back in business with Sean Marks and the Nets for that player. I think that the Cleveland Cavaliers have had a weakness, relatively speaking, in their incredible lineup at the 3. The 3-4 that he could slide in and give them another option there. They're a team that thinks they can win it this year, and they have the record that sort of suggests they might. So I think Cam Johnson, credit to him, he's a great player. He plays off ball and can make almost any offense look a little bit smarter about 7-10 times a night from the 3-point line. And I think that kind of player is going to have a market. So Memphis, no notes on what you guys said. I just don't think they're alone in yearning for a player like Cam Johnson to finish the season with.
We are about to enter the new year 2 days from now, and the Cleveland Cavaliers have 4 losses. It's so crazy because I keep thinking that this is a Celtics title to lose at this point, especially as the way that like they've integrated KP back in there pretty seamlessly, and they've just kind of been steamrolling ever since. The Cavs are a juggernaut based purely on record, and if they added Cam Thompson to that mix, woof, like that's a contender. I would be afraid of them, Waz.
Yeah, there certainly would be more dangerous. Like the sort of small forward by committee that they've been employing has been good enough, especially just because they're so locked into their new style of playing, man. That it's kind of just been a plug and play at that position and let their guys sort of, the big four sort of dictate everything and the guys just plug in and play around it. I wonder what they could offer, more than some of these other competitors for the services of Cam Thomas. But like, obviously, it's been pretty much since they got Donovan Mitchell, we've been staring at that position in their lineup. Like, when are they going to get the freaking that 3-point that three position figured out? Rest in peace to the Dean Wade fan club. I know I was on that bandwagon for a few months and it never really panned out. But like, I do think obviously Cam Johnson just makes way more sense in that role for them. If you're the Celtics, that's got to be your worst nightmare. But I think, the Celtics are still definitely the most talented side in the conference, got the most continuity, the most like guys that have been together in like big games and actually achieved in those situations. So I think they're still like pretty handily the favorite in my mind. But the Cavs, every week by week, they just keep smoking people. And I'm like, damn, like at what point do I adjust my priors?
I could tell you've been watching EPL because you refer to them as a side. Like you're really in the holiday spirit.
EPL's been rough for me. I'm not gonna get into it, but it's been a pretty tough 6 weeks here. But yeah,
I bet. Well, the one team that we haven't talked about probably could be one of the biggest movers on the market. That's the Sacramento Kings. If they ultimately decide to deal a De'Aaron Fox before the trade deadline, seems unlikely, but the way things are heading, it probably seems like an inevitability. We talked about this on a pod last week. Since then, Mike Brown, despite winning a shitload of games, got fired. Ultimately, is the fall guy.
Fourth winningest coach in franchise history.
Not a lot of competition there, but yes, it's still pretty good. You saw pretty much every NBA coach come out. And now this is what happens when a coach is fired. It's like nobody likes to see another coach fired. But it seemed like there was a bit more visceral, like just like there was more like poison darts being thrown in this one in the Kings direction as a result. Mike Brown is Spurs Mafia, Kirk, right? So you have to stand up for your guy.
Yeah, I got to know Mike like a lot of people around the league. I love Mike Brown. I know he's had some tough stops as a head coach. Who hasn't? Who's been around the league at that level for so long. But what I'd say is like, there's 5 to 10 ways to fire somebody, and they chose the dumbest way. They chose a way that I think looks bad, and that's what I think provoked this response. It wasn't that Mike Brown got fired in the middle of the year, but if you read the quotes or the press conference appearances, you watch them, whether it's Steve Kerr or Eric Spoelstra, people who have a lot of respect for Mike, they were just mad at how it went down and the timing and the messaging. And I
about
think
to get on a plane, apparently.
Right. It's just another blemish for an organization that's had a few blemishes over the years. And I think it got that kind of reaction because people, A, love Mike Brown, but B, don't want to be treated like that. Don't respect an organization that would fire a guy on the way to the airport to take a team plane. This needs to be done in person, according to a lot of us. This needs to be done with the respect that kind of transaction demands for a guy who won Coach of the freaking Year that recently. This is a guy who took an organization that should be happy to have a coach win Coach of the Year. Just to do a 180 on him like that, I think it sat poorly with me and obviously, Justin, with a lot of people around the NBA. But I think it's because of how they put him down, so to speak, that it got such a visceral reaction around the league.
So people that I spoke to about this, because like I was a little bit surprised by how pissed off the coaches, they always rally the troops when they feel like another coach has been done wrong. But like people were like really pissed off, as Kirk mentioned. And in the sense that I got it, I think there's a consensus brewing around the league that the Kings are run sort of like a clown show. And what people are really voicing their opinion about is Vivek Ranadive and his style of ownership / management or, governance of that team. And people don't respect him. That's just the bottom line. People think he's a bit of a clown and doesn't know what he's doing. And, we're reading all of these stories, Shams and all these guys putting stuff throughout the leading up weeks of Fox being like, yeah, there was a reason why he didn't take the extension, and maybe he is open to going to another team, and blah, 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 blah. And the sort of what you're supposed to understand is like there's a lack of trust in what this organization can do to make his career go in the direction that he would like it to in terms of playing meaningful games in the postseason, right? I don't know how or why this makes them look better other than the fact that maybe Fox himself didn't really like Mike Brown anymore. In Mike Brown's last press conference, he absolutely savaged him, quite correctly, by the way. Like, he blew that play. He stunk it up on that play. And he killed him. And I think the Kings, and they're probably right to feel this way. I think this is a little overdone. Like, it's not like De'Aaron Fox is like some Luka Doncic figure, but the Kings are gung-ho about keeping him in town. They absolutely do not want to lose him. And so if the coach was making noise and annoying a guy who you're desperate to keep in the building, then the coach has got to go. And that's just the business of the NBA. I think the response is just, people just look at Vivek as he's a fool. Sorry, Vivek.
Yeah, this kind of reeks of desperation of trying to appease the one star that you've been able to home grow in your entire time there as owner. And Lord knows, even before Vivek, things were very difficult to not only get stars there, but to keep them there ultimately. And like,
you think Kings fans are pining for the days of the cheap ass, broke ass Maloofs?
Well, I can't imagine that was better per se, but I don't know if it's like that much better if it is at all. But it just seems like we're following the script here with Fox, where it's like you get this story in preseason where it's like he's turned down the extension. We'll see what happens. And then all of a sudden, Rich Paul coming to town. And then all of a sudden, like, we're getting closer to the deadline and like he's getting more visceral and like the quotes are getting worse. And then like you fire the coach as a last ditch effort in order to appease him. But it seems like to me the writing is on the wall, not only for this team, but probably Fox overall. I just don't see how they turn things around in a way that would appease him and suggest that long-term there's a vision here. If you're firing your coach that you just extended 6 months prior for 3 extra years, like there is no long-term vision here. If anything, it just compounds the issue. It doesn't solve anything else. And like just on like a basic, like how the team functions work, like I just don't see what they were thinking with the DeMar DeRozan trade. I guess just like adding more offense to an offensive leaning team and just like reestablishing that identity, like in a broad sense, makes sense. But I was watching them the other night against the Lakers and just like, he seems like just so completely like compartmentalized from the rest of the team playing the way that they play, where it's like, it's almost like the team is like very punk rock and it's just like, we're just running and we're passing and everyone's having fun and everyone's handoffs. And then they pass it to DeMar DeRozan, who's like the cello player in this punk rock band. And it's just like, he does his thing. It's beautiful. It's balletic. And it's just, but it's so different than everything else they have going on. And so like, it's just so fragmented, Kirk. I don't know what to make sense of the Kings. And ultimately, I think in a small market, this tends to mean that like bad things are coming as a result.
Yeah, I don't know what to make of it. And I'll layer on one more level here, which is like they chose to get rid of Tyrese Halliburton, who was in my community of nerds and stats guys, like one of the absolute best prospects of his draft class. I know he's had a bad year this year, but dude, he was an Olympian. He's an all-star. They also got rid of him. Like the NBA team that's gotten rid of Tyrese Halliburton and brought in DeMar DeRozan in the 2020s is in a weird place. That's not shocking to the nerds out here. But they don't have an identity. They don't have a North Star. And if they lose Fox, it's going to be bad for a team trying to tread water in a brutal Western Conference. But that's what the Kings have been for our whole time covering the NBA, guys. So should we even be surprised? ? I love Mike Brown. He's going to land on his feet. Should we be surprised by this is my question to y'all.
No. No. The dude that wanted to pioneer cherry picking in the NBA, not being able to run a competent organization, I'm not surprised that things aren't working out for him, Kirk.
I miss the days where like DeMarcus Cousins was putting out the snake in the grass like tweets and whatnot. We need to get back to there, because back in the day it was like the Kings were bad, but there was like a certain theater to the badness. Yep. Now they're just bad, which is actually a sadder place to be in. And so I wish good things for Kings fans. Like, they deserve the best. They certainly haven't had a lot of good in their lives over the past 2 decades. That playoff run 2 years ago was incredible. I thought that they would get back and stabilize things this year, but just doesn't seem like it's going right. Even Domantas Sabonis. The funniest thing is, like, you look at the story that the Athletic, Sam Amick, and I believe it was Anthony Slater did before the season, where they're talking to Fox about like, I don't know. Like, even Sabonis is like 2 years. We got 2 years here. And it's just like, if that guy is being upfront about how bad things are, like, you're in a bad state. So we'll see if they turn it around. I doubt that they will, but who knows? Why don't we wrap it there? Kirk, thanks so much for joining us. Welcome back.
My pleasure. Thank you.
We'll be back on Thursday, hopefully with Rob, who is actually sick. We didn't actually throw him across anything or replace him. Isaiah Blakely, thank you for being our producer. Thank you to Ben Cruz. We'll see you next time.
See you in 2025.
Happy New Year, everyone. We'll see you in 2025.